I'm now joined for some one-on-one about last night's ESPYs and those four guys and their somewhat courageous statement last night by Hall of Fame NFL legend Jim Brown. Jim, thanks for joining me. You were in the arena last night when LeBron James and Chris Paul and those guys made that remarkable statement. Was that significant, what they did?
Absolutely. No
Why?
doubt about it, because they represent the strength of the country. These young men are revered in this country. Their skills are fantastic. The articulation was fantastic. They have the money, the resources to help the community. They have the notoriety, they have the power. And if they go into the political arena, they have the power there. The economic arena is so important to the development of our communities. So I'm so happy that these young men stood up.
They referenced you. They referenced Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. A few days ago, Carmelo Anthony put out a post on Instagram showing a picture of you in your youth supporting Muhammad Ali along with Bill Russell and other guys. What actions should they take? They have a lot of economic power. What actions should they take?
Well, you see, you're talking about the they. There is no they as such. There are those individuals that represent the athletic arena. But when you talk about they, I don't know about that because we have been working on projects for many years. So if you ask me about the projects, we got to create jobs. We got to create life management skills. We got to cut down on the violence, particularly in the black communities. But I'll give you a shortcut. Taxation without representation is a historical term. So that means that every citizen should be able to enjoy the greatness of America. And that isn't happening. So when I say taxation without representation, I'm talking about an intelligent approach to change things, not through charity, but through change.
So those four guys last night, if they were sitting here right now, and I'm sure you've talked to LeBron and some of these guys individually, what advice would you give them? How can they help promote that change in a real way?
No, the key is to create a collective for all of us to join forces with our goals very clear. One goal I can give you will be the violence in our neighborhoods. We must address that because culturally, as a people, black people, we can't afford to have our communities be a war zone and our young people dying each and every day.
So much of the conversation right now is centered on police violence.
Yes.
And the police killing black men. Is that a misguided conversation? What's the bigger problem?
It's
police violence or our own violence?
Our own violence is really the bigger problem. Because if you look at the Korean community, they work together. They have great relationships with the police. The police respect them. I think what you have is you have a small percentage of racists, and then you have a percentage of policemen that are looking at us do harm to ourselves, and therefore they might cross the line. I don't know that as a fact, but the police problem is a political problem. It's a government problem. The President of the United States should be dealing with that problem. We can deal with the problem in our own communities, and we can deal with things that are going to be generational an advantage. In other words, education, black fathers taking responsibility for their families. All of these things are very important. And so we must have systems in place. We can't just be on the show talking with you.
Black Lives Matters, and I don't want to tee you up for some softball, but is Black Lives Matter, is it good or is it divisive? Does it have us on the right issues?
Well, let me ask you this. What's the objective?
I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not sure they are.
I've given you that answer by saying that the police problem is one that our politicians, our president, our vice president, the police chief, all of these people should be involved in that. That's in their backyard. As just normal citizens, we can cry out, but all we're doing is crying out to tell them to go into action because we can't go into action. anything we do is going to be considered a criminal act. And certain things will make your whole movement become negligent. So I don't want to criticize anyone, because if the Black Lives Matter, if these individuals are sincere and they feel that's the way they want to protest, that's fine. But I don't want to protest that way. I want to put these systems in place. I want to have construction companies that will hire trained individuals in the community. We must create jobs. We must deal with education. We must bring the poor up, because we have regressed from the standpoint of where all the dollars are. And I'll exaggerate and say there are 3 companies in the world that control all the money, at least in America. Well, that shouldn't be.
I've seen you recently in Cleveland celebrating the Cavaliers championship. I know for the past few years, you and LeBron James have been developing a bit of a relationship. LeBron seems to be implementing a lot of the things you're talking about in Akron and in the Cleveland area. He's been investing money, and in his speech, he talked about investing money in the communities we come from. Is that the blueprint we should be following?
Absolutely. That's a part of it. And LeBron is a true hero, a true American hero, because this young man has had family problems. You know, he's changed teams. People have criticized him for doing that, but he came back home, came back to Cleveland, and against all odds won them a championship. He's accessible, he's intelligent, he stays out of trouble, and he is a real great leader for these young athletes of today.
Do you see some of yourself in LeBron James? And I don't want to put, he's a young guy, I don't want to put him on too high of a pedestal, but I do see him setting a standard that's making these other guys follow.
Well, there's no doubt about it. He takes advantage of his position as a leader, and the fact that he's a leader because he has the kind of skills and he has the kind of mind that he has, and he is utilizing it. So when he reaches to me, it shows a great knowledge, because I've been out there for years, and he's not a young man that goes past the elders. He invites us as elders to be a part of where his mind is, and I'm sure when we sit down formally, he will do as much listening as he will talking. So I have nothing but kudos for LeBron James.
Former football player, you. Why are we seeing so many basketball players active and speaking out and not as many football players?
Well, it's just started. It's been a struggle for years because the money is so great, and the individuality of these individuals have it was above everything else. In fact, they thought that we were in a country that freedom, equality, and justice was the main thing. But they found out that we as a country have a lot of work to do. And Americans think that some of Americans should share more of the booty. But as an American and brought over here as an African slave, it's no different than some guy from England coming over here from England, because we all migrated here, and the indigenous people, the Indians, were gotten rid of very quickly and relegated to second-class citizen. The African-American is fighting back and fighting not to be a second-class citizen. That's why I said earlier to you, taxation without representation, because we're not begging for anything. We're actually demanding our rights in a democratic society, and we are paying our taxes, which is what you do as a good American. And if you're law-abiding on top of that, then what is the problem?
Thank you so much, Jim. Jim does a lot of important work, particularly with Wendell Stimley and the National Association of Minority Contractors. I know they've been involved in trying to provide jobs.